Hey guys, welcome to Red Line Talk Show. I'm here today with Iliana and a very special guest. He came all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. His name is Mark Kosmo, a community leader in Boston. Has done so many organizations, startups, and he's a philanthropist. And we want to get to know you more, Mark, and get your background story a little
Yeah.
bit and tell us exactly how you got here, where you got here.
Welcome,
Okay.
Mark, to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So I know that you were born here.
Yes.
You were first generation.
Technically, I am third generation. Oh,
Wow.
sorry, second generation.
Second generation. Okay.
My parents were, I always say, I think they were conceived in Albania, but born in America based on the dates when my grandparents died, which is, we have 100 years in America now.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So
And-
sometimes I joke that I'm a born-again Albanian because in the early 1990s, I was in my mid-30s, that's when I started to learn Albanian language and travel there.
Yes. So one thing I like about Mark is he always throws an Albanian word when he talks to you. So tell us a little bit about that because that's very interesting. So you went to Albania in the 90s, right? And
Right.
it was a very difficult time at the time. I remember you were there from 1996 to 1999 that you lived there.
That's when I lived there. My first time visiting there was May 1992. I was an environmental economist at the World Bank in Washington. So I went to Albania, 10, 15 times from 92 to 96 for project work.
I mean, that must have been a culture shock for you because at the time, Albania was very, I would say, new to the world.
It wasn't a big culture shock for me because I had traveled in a lot of developing countries
Okay.
before that. So for me, the thing that was unique was that it was Albanian. And I felt
Yeah.
this sort of instinctive attachment and comfort in the place right away.
I found that same thing in 2007, the first time I went to Albania. And just to see all the signs in Albanian,
Uh-huh.
people speaking Albanian, the names, and I was just like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 1997, that was the big civil war,
Right.
right? How did you think, how did you cope with that?
So
'Cause that was a very tough time for everyone
yeah.
living there.
I mean, people would ask me, why are you staying? Everyone else is leaving.
Yeah.
Right.
And I say, look, I have an American passport. I can leave tomorrow if I want. So I stayed all through 97. I remember the day of the shooting, I was having a coffee with a friend in the Bloco.
Oh.
And all of a sudden we hear the
The
boom, boom,
gunshots.
and maybe we better go.
Were you
And
scared at any point?
a little bit, maybe the first day, but then, you went out and you went around. There was definitely gunfire the first couple of days. Drove to Durrës with a friend. I mean, it was a little scary, but at the same time, it was, you sort of knew you were experiencing something you weren't going to experience again,
Right.
and never experienced before. So it was very interesting.
Was there any
Curious.
specific memorable moments at that time that really sticks by you? Besides the gunshots, of
Actually,
course.
one of the things that I learned, so we went through a road check, and all of the police had on masks.
Yes.
And I said to my friend, how come they have masks on? Because, it was an American, police never. He said, the problem is it's a small country. Everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if
that
you
makes
see
sense.
who the cops are, then it puts them at higher
Yeah.
risk, So
They
it's
could
something
go
that's
after-
so
yeah.
obvious when it's explained to you. But if you think of it in an American context, it just, it wouldn't come to mind. So.
Yeah, I mean that's always been the problem there because everybody knows somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even to get justice done, it's very difficult because you're gonna find a way to get to the judge or to to
Yeah.
prosecution or to the cops or to someone,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Through
yeah.
family connections and all that.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult.
Uh-huh.
But so you grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts.
Yep.
What made you again? Because you were born here. What was the drive for you to go back to Albania and just give back and be involved so much with the Albanian culture?
So like I said, I went the first time in 1992. So I went for professional reasons. I mean, I had this personal connection. I knew the country was opening up. So I was getting more curious. I could feel it,
Yeah.
And then they asked me to go for work. So it just sort of was very easy. And as soon as I went, I knew that, I'm going to have a long ride with this, whether it's living there or living here. I wasn't sure. I liked living there for a few years, but after a while, it just got too difficult. I always say if I work with my Albanian heart, it's not difficult to work in Albania. But if you work with your American head, it can
Right.
be much more difficult. So I got to the point where I felt like I had to come back to America. And it was at that point that I got more involved in Albanian diaspora stuff. Because,
Community here.
yeah, because before that, I mean, I was in D.C., in graduate school. I wasn't, other than my cousins and my family, it's not like I knew a lot of Albanians. You know, I started to meet them in D.C. in the 90s, but it wasn't a big community there. So,
Right. Do want to talk a little bit about some of the projects that you had. One of them being about the National Environmental Action Plan and initiatives at Lake Ohrid.
yeah.
So can you, and also the coastal zone management, can you
Right.
tell us a little bit more about these projects? How have you, come to work on those
Yeah.
projects?
So, I mean, again, that was in the World Bank days, and National Environmental Action Plan. Albania was just coming out of communism, so it was the first effort to assess all of the national issues at a broad level,
Right.
sort of prioritized implementation. Based on that, two of the priorities were Lake Ohrid management, which was a very interesting project because you had to work with two countries which didn't have a history of working together. It was probably the first project that the two countries.
That's North Macedonia and
Yeah,
Albania?
North Macedonia, Albania.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the most fun projects I worked on. And again, it was to design a lake management program. So for wastewater management, fisheries management.
Did you face
groundwater.
any resistance
No.
from the government at all, or no?
No, I would say never resistance. I mean, sometimes things were difficult because they had
The
constraints.
styles, right?
Styles
Also.
were different, and a lot of this stuff was really new to Albania.
And communication too.
Yeah,
So you have, the government there that speaks Macedonian, you have the Albanian, and then here's you from America.
Right. Yeah. I always remember one of my World Bank colleagues. He was Albanian. I said, "What's your strategy for getting the two countries to work together?" He said, "My strategy is to let them fight with each other until they're exhausted.
And then you go in.
And then I'll come in with the obvious solution."
That's actually a good way to do it.
And then for the third one, the coastal zone management, it was to, again, big picture sort of design policies and priorities for development of the coast. Unfortunately, it's not in Albanian DNA for doing things like planning and management,
Right.
broad scale. Everything's sort of pushed a lot locally, so it's hard to do those sort of.
Lake Ohrid
general
is
plans.
one of the most beautiful lakes
It's
in
a
the world.
fantastic place, yeah.
And a lot of history in there. And they're actually starting to find a lot of archaeological findings that date thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
On the coast, also a lot of underwater
Yes. Very cool.
archaeology.
So your roots are from Korçë, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
right? So do you ever visit there?
Oh, yeah, sure. The first time was in 92. I think I spent a week there. I've probably been there 50 times, but I haven't been there in the last 15 years. And we had
it's really
relatives
beautiful there.
I mean, my father's uncle was still alive when I was going to Albania.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so his first cousins also. So I met all of them. Some distant cousins on my mother's side also. So.
Because a lot of people from that region, from Korçë, migrated to Boston, if I'm not mistaken, doing that a long time ago.
Yeah.
When were the first Albanians that arrived in Boston?
The very, very first one, I think, is 1884.
Wow.
But in
From
terms of
Korçë, correct?
Yeah. But in terms of there being sort of a big wave, it would have been the early 1900s.
1900s. Right.
Bonoli, all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I always tell people, this is God's honest truth. So in Boston, until the last 30 years, all the Albanians were from Korçë and were Orthodox. So until I was 17 years old, I thought all Albanians were Orthodox. I mean, because you only met your cousins and people in church. It wasn't
Right.
a ton of people. There were no immigrants coming because it was...
And then you come to New York.
Yeah, and then actually the way I discovered it, I was reading the newspaper and I read about Kosovo Muslim population. It's like, whoa, there's this whole other world out there. Opened my eyes up.
So tell us a little bit about that community in Boston, right? Because I'm always fascinated to learn more about the Albanian communities around the States.
Mm-hmm.
I think Boston has maybe the third, I would say, largest community.
After New York and Detroit.
Yeah.
Our
that
estimate
accurate?
I think our estimate is 100,000 for all of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Because we've done some databases and things like this to get some idea. There's sort of two parts of the community in the sense that there's the old timers like me, that their families have been there 80, 100 years.
Generation after generation,
but pretty much Americanized. Like my brothers don't speak Albanian, my cousins.
So are you
How fluent are you?
I'm
Like-
okay now because
No,
I
he's
live
a-
there, you know.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
could do this interview in Albanian. If I
are
had
you
to, yeah.
the black sheep of the family?
Yeah, I was always the black sheep. Yeah. In fact, my nickname as a kid was Moot in the house.
Moot.
And my brother still calls me. I have a twin brother. He still calls me that sometimes. So,
So you are the founder and chair of the Global Albanians Foundation,
right,
which is, again, I've heard you guys do a lot of good things.
right.
Tell us a little bit more about how that started and some of the initiatives that you
Yeah.
have working.
Okay. So first I want to back up on the Boston community. So,
Yeah.
You know, a lot of my work, to say even with Global Albanians, it came out of working with Boston community for the last 20 years, 25 years, let's say. So we created the Massachusetts Albanian American Society. And one thing that I think is true in Boston is that it's, I don't want to brag or anything, but it's probably the most highly educated of all of the Albanian diaspora communities because people go there for universities, they
Yeah.
go there for their kids to go to school. In fact, Harvard had done a demographic profile of the Albanian American diaspora. And in Boston, it was like 40% had a university or higher degree.
Wow.
Which 40%, and that's higher than average American population.
Correct.
So we have a very good community in terms of professionalism, in terms of, you know, the strong sense of national Albanian identity, probably not the same way that you have here in New York.
But why is
you
that?
know? I don't know. Part of it, I really think, is that people from Albania are less patriotic and
Versus those like from Kosovo
Yeah,
or
yeah.
from like North Macedonia
But I think
or even
there's
Montenegro.
this is a maybe simplistic explanation, but Albanians in Albania were oppressed by other Albanians.
Right.
And Albanians in Kosovo, Macedonia were
Were
oppressed by a
by
different
others.
ethnic group. So
Yeah.
this is a kind of unifying theme
Yeah.
that it bonds people together and
Yeah.
it carries through life over generations.
So my family came from North Macedonia. So we, you know, the reason why my grandfather came this way is because of the oppression from the
right, right.
communist time at that time.
Mhm.
And it was just instilled in us to like, where in America we could be free, so we could speak the language, we can
Right,
listen
right.
to the music, we could learn the history.
Uh-huh.
Where my father growing up back home, they would arrest you just for
Right.
having, you know, a book from Albania.
Mhm.
So it's definitely, I definitely agree with you.
Mhm. And also, just to back up and sort of give a feel for one difference between Boston and New York community is I never met anyone from Kosovo in Boston until they were refugees.
Right.
Yeah.
They just weren't immigrants.
But even
from
here,
Kosovo.
they only came
Yeah,
after
they
the
didn't
war.
have, mostly
There
in the
wasn't any.
late
But they were-
90s. There was some, but
Yeah, okay,
not
not
as
in large
much.
numbers.
Not as, yeah,
Not
more
as
than
much.
numbers, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
now
fair.
there's more in Boston, but it's, you know, my guess is 90% of the Albanians in Boston are from Albania.
Yeah. that
And
makes
mostly
sense.
from the south, I would say, right?
Yeah,
Or is it
probably more from the south.
more from
yeah.
the south.
That's what usually happens. Once you have one person who comes to
Yeah,
a
they
specific
follow,
area,
yeah,
then
yeah.
everyone goes to
Yeah, yeah.
that area. Yeah.
So then walk us through those. So you founded MAASBESA, right?
Right.
And then the Global Albanians Foundation.
Right.
Are they in the same timeline or a different timeline?
No, different time. So Massachusetts Albanian American Society started in 2006.
Okay.
As I joked to you earlier, someone told me that I should Mark, you got to form an Albanian organization here in Boston. And this is 2002 or so. And I was like, F that. I don't want to do that, you know?
Yeah.
But then, you know, a couple of years later, there was more and more activity. And so we did it. So I'm still on the board. And I guess I was the chair for 13 years, maybe something
Oh,
like
wow.
that, you know?
Long time.
Couldn't get anyone to replace me. I tried a few times.
They're
but
like, you're
people-
doing such a great job.
Yeah,
Just stay
yeah,
there.
yeah. And then Global Albanians Foundation, it actually started in 2015, but as an activity of MAASBESA and Albanian American Women's Organization here. And then maybe 2 or 3 years after that, 2018 actually, I went to Kosovo and Albania, and then it's like, okay, now's the time to legally create an organization and get the approval from the IRS, all that stuff.
So they're
it's
both
6 years.
they're both 501(c)(3)s.
Yeah,
I'm
they're both
assuming.
fine. I mean, I like to say we're among the few serious Albanian organizations.
Yeah.
Serious in the sense that all the legal stuff is done
Right.
properly, all the accounting is done properly. You know, you can go on the internet, you can find our tax filings, all that kind of stuff. So it's
What is the mission for for each one? Do they have similar missions
No,
or
no.
they're
I mean,
different?
Massachusetts Albanian American Society is more to promote culture, language, Albanian identity in the local community in Massachusetts. Whereas Global Albanians Foundation, in one sentence, its purpose is to promote Albanian diaspora philanthropy.
Okay.
And part of the reason for that is that a lot of need to raise money to help in Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Preševa, Montenegro. But you cannot just go online and click and donate to a not-for-profit organization in Tirana or Korçë or Pristina.
Right.
So the purpose of Global Albanians Foundation is to be like a intermediate step, so we can collect the money, tax-deductible donations, all that stuff, and then work with NGOs over there. So I think we've worked with maybe 50 to 75 NGOs over there that we've
How do you
raised
keep the
money for.
balance between all of these organizations plus your work life, your personal life?
I manage. I'm one of these people. Whatever gets done today, and the rest gets
Done
until
tomorrow.
Yeah, and that part doesn't faze me too much. Also, it's not like my life depends on it.
Right. You're doing
it's
it
all
for fun, for
volunteer,
pleasure.
So
With a great cause at the same
no,
time.
that's good. Yeah, and the Albanian philanthropy stuff, it has a lot of potential because our community is, if you think compared to 20 or 30 years ago, I mean, you could just use both two of you as examples. I mean, you're more educated, you're more sophisticated, you're financially better off than you ever were.
Right.
And that's the basis of philanthropy in the end, But we have to have good mechanisms, good partners overseas to work with.
We recently were at the Original fundraiser that you hosted, and it was amazing. Can you just talk to us a little bit about Original, what it is, what the mission is? Because there's a lot of our listeners that don't know what Original is.
Okay, so Original is a program to bring Albanian diaspora youth for a 2-week trip to Albania, Macedonia, Kosovo, to experience their roots. It's not for diaspora youth that go visit grandma every year.
Right.
It's more for the people that have been there 2 or 3 times in their life.
Or not at all.
Oh, not at all, yeah. They're 18 to 24 years old. We're hoping to expand it to different age groups, younger people, but there's financial constraints. You can only do what you raise enough money for. So over the last 2 years, I think there's been something like 150 participants. And the implementation is all done by Gurmin. It's a diaspora organization in Pristina. It has about 15 employees. So GAF's role, Global Albanians Foundation, is to help raise money. But all the implementation is done by them in the field. So it's a very good
okay.
So
working relationship.
Collaboration.
Yeah,
so Gurman is
good.
the one, the operations behind
Yeah,
it.
they do it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys are just the fundraising mechanism.
Yeah, because like I said, if people wanted to donate directly to Gurmin, it's just not that easy.
Right.
Right.
But how do you choose the participants
candidates.
and the people that go to from the diaspora?
Again, that's Gurmin handles all that. So I don't interfere with that at all. I talk to them some, and they tell me we get someone from Chicago or Zurich or wherever. But the details.
There's an application that they have to go to on the website?
Yeah, it's posted, I think, usually in January and February, and the application period lasts about a month. The last couple of years, they've got way more applications than they could accept. I think 5 to 10 times as many. So that indicates that there's a high demand.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, everyone wants to get a free trip to go to.
So there's 2 ways to address that. One is to raise a lot more money to pay for more people up here. The other is we might start charging something for the people that participate, again, so that we can widen the exposure. Because the idea is to grow it exponentially. Israel has had a program called Birthright Israel for 25 years, and they've done, hundreds of thousands of Israeli Jewish diaspora youth visiting. And, I don't think we'll ever reach those kind of numbers, but the idea is certainly to reach into the thousands.
Right.
No, I mean, it's definitely a great initiative. I just don't know how sustainable it is, right? By just raising money every year, because, it's a very tough thing to do, especially in our community, where there's not a lot of money that people donate to stuff like this, right? So How do you deal with that?
So just to point out the Birthright Israel model, their model is large philanthropists, government support, and then, smaller donors here and there.
Right.
So we have no government support. I mean,
Right.
maybe Grameen's got a little bit of money from government in Kosovo, but not significant. From government Albania, none. So there is a sustainability issue because we don't know that people that give $10,000, $20,000 this year are going to do the same next year.
Right.
Right.
So sometimes those big donors, it's like they do it once and then, okay, come back in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we started. We had a couple big donors 2 years ago. Last year, not so much. And then last night we threw a big fundraiser event here, which probably got about $200,000 in pledges. So that's pretty good because it costs about $2,500 for one participant in the program. So the goal is to get to 500,000 and have 200 participants this year.
Wow, that's an ambitious goal.
Yeah, well, they always say you aim high because you always fall short of your expectations.
Exactly, exactly.
But I'm not the kind of person that thinks.
We all were getting jealous when watching the video and seeing how much fun they were having, traveling from going to Girokasa to Berat. They were going to all different places.
We were talking last night, and I think I have some ideas that I want to run by you.
Sure.
For the program.
I always like the ideas.
He's the idea man.
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas in my head. I think it's very nice what you guys are doing, bringing people from Diaspora to visit the homeland and all that. But I think you should incorporate local kids to be part of that as well. Maybe, reward students that have a high achievements in their schools, and as part of their rewards is they get to go on the trip with the Diaspora group.
Yeah, so
to kind of give them a hope a little bit as well, because you have local kids who never travel locally because they don't have the means to do it.
Right.
There has been some of that. I think not a lot, but I think on each cohort, each trip, there have been 1 or 2 local participants, and I know that they also meet with youth NGOs. So it's not sort of just going around and looking at museums and the typical tourist.
But I want them to be part of that experience.
I get you.
To get on the bus with the other kids and start developing relationships.
Especially, like the village kid who goes to school walking 2 hours to get to class,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of those kids that haven't really traveled even inside the country, because they don't have,
No, and it reinforces the connection of the
and that's
diaspora with the home. Because if you just connect them with people from Chicago and Berlin and London, it's okay, but it's not the same as connecting with you from the country. So I'll tell them I'll send them an email when we got
we got an idea.
And my other suggestion would be a senior group.
Let them pay. Let them pay.
Have a group of seniors, the ones that who are, in a good status to go and just develop more high-level relationships, with a business or entrepreneurship or whatever.
Now, we have talked about that. Mostly it's been difficult to do because this implementation capacity is limited for Grameen. They can't do everything. But the business model can be, you do it for adults who pay
X amount
and
of
adults
dollars.
can pay their own ticket.
and then it subsidizes the youth programs. So it's definitely something.
Then you can get more, more locals to join the program.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more. What type of projects that you have working on currently? Any future projects that you want to share?
So the 2 main, 3 activities of Global Albanians Foundation. One is crowdfunding in general for Albanian NGOs, but they have to apply to use the platform, and then they have to be good at raising money themselves. It's kind of like we give them the keys to the car and they have to drive it. We don't.
Let me just stop there for a second. So were you saying to fundraise for local NGOs there?
In Albania.
Oh, so
in Kosovo.
Oh, in Albania, not here.
Not here. We don't raise money for organizations here. Because the organizations here should be able to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So you raise money for organizations back home.
Yeah, like Down Syndrome Albania, Action for Mothers and Children in
That's
Kosovo.
very good.
Like I said, we've probably worked with 50 different NGOs over the last.
So how much money were you guys able to raise each year?
It's probably been $1 million total over the last 5 years.
Oh, very nice.
Say 200,000 a year. About. We launched our website about 12 hours before the earthquake. So,
wow,
that was we got 150,000 in 1 month just for the earthquake. And what we did was awarded grants to NGOs working in earthquake areas on different projects. Some were for kids, Some were for healthcare, some were for fixing houses, different stuff like that. We didn't do any construction work because it's just too difficult to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it was like, okay, we're going to pick some good NGOs to work with, and they have to submit proposals and take it from there. So there's that one, which was, let's say, the original foundation of why we created GAF. The second one is Original, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
And the third one, which I'm hoping will launch legally this month, is we are going to start the first community foundation in Albanian homelands in Korçë.
Okay.
So community foundation is kind of like United Way. It's an umbrella for other organizations. You donate to the community foundation, and then it gives grants to different organizations. So it's always local. The reason we're starting in Korçë is because we have a 91-year-old woman who grew up here in Washington Heights. She did a PhD in Columbia in botany. Then
I remember this story.
Yeah, she became a opera singer for 10 years, and then a financial planner. So she's a fascinating woman. Yvonne Naum is her name. And unfortunately, 2 of her 3 children have died. And she's found me, I don't know, less than 2 years ago online. It's like, I want to donate half of my estate to help in Korçë.
Wow.
So now, after a lot of discussion with her, people in Korçë, we're at this point where we're going to create the Korçë Community Foundation. It's called Korçaret Endimoin Korçaret. And hopefully, if that goes well, it can serve as a model for other cities in Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, everywhere. Because the community foundation concept is pretty simple. There's tons of them in the United States.
I mean, it's similar to GAF, essentially.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah.
But locally over there.
Right, locally. It's going to be harder than Original because, first of all, it's local. So, someone from Jakova might not care about Korçë Community Foundation.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we'll have to focus on Korçë Diaspora more for that. And then we have to partner up with businesses in Korçë that are willing to also participate. So it's very much at the beginning, but we have a really good team. We have one guy working full-time in Korçë. We have a good board of directors, 8 or 9 people, 4 from Korçë, 4 from the United States, 1 from Tirana. So it's...
When you raise money in GAF for these NGOs back home, and like, for example, you mentioned the Down syndrome foundation that you work with. When you do the donation, do you do like follow-ups to see how things are going, see where, like...
It depends. So, for example, on the earthquake projects, we did because we raised the money and then we had to have a competition, where they submitted grant proposals. For things like Down syndrome Albania, it's more like they apply to use the platform and we approve it. And then, they raise the money and, okay, we ask for a report on what was done, but it's not feasible for us to
be the police.
To be the police. It just doesn't work.
No,
we don't have the resources.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like when you see like where, the donations, where the money is going and the impact that it has positively to the individuals back home. People are more inclined for the following year to continue to donate. Yeah, so I just want to know, like, where do we find those stories of the impact of where their donation?
They're on the website. It's there. I mean, I have to admit we probably haven't done as good a job of publicizing that as we should, and it's a human resource limitation. I mean, we have a board of directors, but we have no staff. So
you only have chiefs and no Indians.
Yeah. But I mean, Gurmeen does all the implementation for us for like the social media, the website, all of these kinds of things. But they have their own organization to run. So it's not like, I have the time or capacity to write project summaries to post
Right.
Because even the financial stuff for the IRS, the bank, I have to do all that stuff myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to. It's either I do it or pay someone a lot of money.
The videos were very impactful. Like, when we were watching the original
they
video,
do very good videos.
You didn't even have to speak about what the program was about. You just knew.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, where do I bring my money?
Yeah. No, videos are a very good way of fundraising. And, my philosophy on fundraising is, I mean, when I give to something, okay, if I give $50 or whatever, I forget about it. It's like, okay, I had a good feeling about this organization, so I donate, but it's not like I'm going to look for a report 6 months later or one year later.
True.
But
big money. Yeah, I know.
The big money.
The stigma is there.
Yeah, no, with Albanian
with the
Albanians
is that, I donated money, where did my money go?
Right.
And we always want to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
up stories in our head. You know, something happened.
Yeah.
But and again, that's a challenge. And
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go back to the previous question that I said to you: is this sustainable? This model where the only way of raising money is through fundraisers and donations. I don't think that you can only do it for so long, and then it's eventually gonna dry up.
First of all, I generally don't think more than 3 or 6 months ahead.
Okay,
It's been working though. Look how successful
I
you've become.
mean, given that we don't have a overhead, no office, no staff. In that sense, it's sustainable. I mean, whether to move it up to a higher level where it's more sophisticated and then
but that's what I'm saying. I want you to get to that level.
You got big dreams for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm already dreaming about the next big event in New York, because New York's the only place where you can do a serious fundraising event, And so I've always had this idea of a philanthropy night where different organizations come and raise money together rather than everyone having a separate fundraising event.
But then how are they going to split the money?
I'm not sure.
They're going to fight over that.
Well, no. For example, let's say you buy a ticket. You could say, I want my ticket to go towards organization XYZ. And you can say, I want mine to go to organization
I can see
ABC.
so many different things going wrong with that just because there's so many.
Oh, yeah. Get people to work together. Yeah, no, I know. So
they have people in the similar interest groups, and why they're donating to you, but not that person. Then it becomes this whole.
You got to make it anonymous.
It becomes a whole drama.
That's true. But I always like to say that I don't want people to think that we're competing for the same pie.
Right.
We should be cooperating to increase the size of the pie.
I like that idea, though.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, but
no, I know, to make it happen. It's
very simple. Just make it anonymous. Nobody tells them.
No, I know. I was thinking more of the lines where I like that idea when you bring all the organizations under one roof, but every money that gets raised that day, they all get split up amongst all of them, and you can choose 1 or 2 causes where the money can go into.
Right. Yeah. So it's very clear at the beginning of the fund. Yeah, we did a golf tournament in Boston a couple of weeks ago, and 3 organizations split the money 1/3 each.
Yeah. Or you can, like I said, you can have a cause or 2, and then whatever money that gets raised, but the organizations now they're part of that story, right? And they're part of that fundraising, and they can also share about it with, within their communities, because otherwise it's gonna get messy,
right?
So looking at your journey back since you first started the Albanian organizations, what are some of your most memorable projects that you were fond of that you can tell us about?
I'm not.
They're going to stick with you until
I'm not generally one that plays favorites, so to speak, that way. I'm sitting here now trying to think of like the
most
highlight,
memorable one that you actually feel really proud of that you did it.
Well, so many of them are sort of still works in progress, so I can't.
You got him stuck.
Yeah,
that's the whole point.
Tough question.
That's the whole point.
And it's not like, like I said, we helped 50 different NGOs in Albania. I don't even remember the names of all of them, you know. I mean, to give one good example of sort of something small leading something bigger, we raised money for floods in Kosovo to help in Mitrovica and Skenderaj. And the Chicago Albanians contacted me, say, hey, we want to contribute to the same project.
See, this is exactly what you were talking about, trying to get all different organizations, different groups together.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And then after that, they're like, hey, we want to do a fundraiser for our Kosovo Independence Party, and all of the profit will go to financing scholarships for Original. And that was like $8,000 extra that they sent last year hopefully for students from Chicago that will go to, or Illinois, that will go on Original. So this was something that it felt good because you started with one purpose in Bashpunim, and then all of a sudden you're doing something different.
No, this makes sense. So there are a lot of organizations out there, hundreds and hundreds, not just in New York, Boston, Chicago, everywhere. And a lot of times people, like even now with all the student organizations, and they're looking for a cause, like what kind of cause? They don't have to start from the beginning. They can actually like just, like you said, Bashkpunoj with with your organization and pick one of the NGOs and raise money for that specific NGO that kind of fits their
Right.
Objectives.
Yeah. So can we go onto your website, the GAF website, and do you have like a list of different NGOs that you're working with?
Yeah, it lists all of the campaigns that we've had over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know the exact number, but there's a lot. So shows how much money was raised for each one, description of each campaign.
But what about the local community here, though? I feel like, yes, it's good to raise money for back home with the NGOs over there, but I also feel like we should focus a little bit of the community here because there's a lot of good work that's being done by individuals or small groups that have very good intentions, but they don't have the resources, and they're fighting, for money and funding and things like that. Why can we also do something locally to those organizations or groups?
I guess it's like a lot of things in life. You got to decide what you want to do, what your priority is, and have a narrow enough mission that people understand what you do. So, when I started, I'm thinking there's much more need in the homeland countries,
Right.
Both financially and in the, let's say, logistical sense.
Yeah.
And then, as an example, in Boston, we have the Massachusetts Albanian American Society. So there's nothing that Global Albanians Foundation can do in Boston that MAASBESA can't do. I mean, it's formed for that purpose to help locally.
So they go to your local organization.
Yeah.
For advice, for help, for
right. And the fundraising is done separately. I mean, there's maybe been a little bit of collaboration here and there. Like they are going to finance one scholarship for original, so a youth from Boston can go overseas. But it's not. I don't see GAF as contributing to the Albanian school in Boston. To me, that's people from Boston. That's their job.
That's their job, right?
Global Albanians Foundation's goal is to be, like it says, to be global. Right now, it's most of the money comes from the United States, but we have donors from Switzerland and Germany, Italy. So hopefully over time that'll change.
So what is your view on our community, right? I mean, you coming from Boston and then New York. Do you see similarities between the two? Are there differences between the communities, the Michigan community as well?
Definitely. I mean, the major differences, to me at least, is that the demographic part, where in Boston, it's much more people from Albania. In Detroit, there's much more, say, from north of Albania compared to south of Albania. In Boston, here you have a much more diverse community, much larger, much wealthier. I mean, for fundraising, if you want to do big fundraising,
New York is the place.
This is the place. I mean, Boston, you can do an event where people pay $100, but not where people are going to pay $500 or $1,000. Part of it is just the sheer size. You have much bigger community here.
Do you think we're united as a community here?
No. Oh, here in New York, you mean, or in general?
In general. Well, you can
in
take
general,
both communities.
I think we're good at local stuff. So Boston's good at what it does, and New York, Detroit. But at that level of national cooperation, or especially international, dope it. It's just 2 and 2 is always less than 4.
Right. Hopefully that can get changed.
Yeah. Hopefully
how do we change that? And
I mean, part of it is just the different local organizations, just people communicating with each other over time, and you try to develop ways of working it. Because if I think of my own case, I mean, I was mostly focused in Massachusetts, then started to get to know some people here. Have worked together with dozens of people here in New York on fundraising, other community activities, stuff like that. So there's no magic wand for that.
Yeah.
And part of it is the Albanian DNA is not always real good for the collaboration. And, the local groups have different priorities. Texas may have certain priorities, Boston, different ones. And we all have our different political perspectives once politics gets involved.
Yeah.
And me personally, I lean left. I vote Democrat, I have some of my best friends are Republican. But there are definitely Albanians and others that they can't work with people on the other side of the aisle. Me personally, I'd rather work with someone I disagree with who is agreeable than someone who I agree with who is disagreeable.
Right.
I mean, yes, you bring up a good point because politics is always a divider for me.
Yeah,
You have people that it doesn't matter whether Albanian or American. I think in America it's even worse now. It's so polarized between the
now
two
it's worse,
parties.
yeah.
I don't think it was always that way.
No, it's
No.
worse now. Yeah.
It's definitely gotten a
worse.
lot worse now.
These last 10 years.
And there's no more communication, right? There's no more reasoning. It's just you're left, I'm right, that's it.
Yeah.
This is where it ends, you know?
No, one of my childhood friends, we talk about sports all the time, but politics, it's like, after 5 or 10 seconds, we better change the topic.
What advice would you give to the next generation of Albanian Americans who want to contribute to both Diaspora or to Albania's future?
Well, first thing I would say is don't feel like there's a timeline that you have to get involved when you're 15 or 20.
Right.
I mean, I didn't get involved till I was 40 years old. That was my path in life.
That's our age.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got plenty of time to do more.
Thank you for telling me.
Everyone knows our age now.
Oh my God.
So there's no path. I mean, of course, it's better if people are engaged and go to community events and all that when they're in their teens and 20, because it's not that easy to connect when you get older. School's the most important thing. If you can't help yourself first, then you can't help the rest of the community. So first, you got to get yourself to a good spot in your professional life and in your personal life that you feel secure, that you can start looking around and see ways to help other people. And even don't worry about if it's Albanian or not Albanian. That part kind of takes care of itself.
I guess the place to start would be like, okay, if you want to do something to give back, start with your local organization, see what their mission is, see what kind of projects they're working on. Check your website at the Global Albanian Foundation.
Was it GAF.com? Is that
Global Albanians.
GlobalAlbanians.com. So you can go to globalalbanians.org and kind of look at your mission and stuff. And, you don't have to always start something from scratch and start something new. You can collaborate with the existing projects that are happening.
Right. No,
the
even
more collaboration,
the student
the better.
clubs, there's definitely potential to work. I think a couple of times we donated to student events at Yale and Harvard that we're bringing together Albanian students from different places. And we said, look, okay, we're going to sponsor you guys, but help us to advertise Original because we're looking for your demographic to participate in the
and there's
trips,
more and more student organizations now within not just the colleges, but the high schools as well, which didn't exist 20 years ago.
So is there a Harvard's Albanian club?
Yeah.
And Yale one too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Harvard one has been probably 20 years, maybe a little less than that. The problem with all the student clubs is that you're only in school 3 or 4 years.
Exactly.
And if the head person graduates and no one's ready to take the flag and run with it, it dies. The Harvard one, I think, was kind of dormant for at least 5 years. This was 10 years ago. The one at Boston University, the same. They had an event every Flag Day for 5-6 years, and then it died. That was it.
So do they have any active ones now, or they're
at Boston University?
In all?
Oh yeah, there's some. I mean, Harvard is definitely very active right now.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm sure there are some that are active that I don't know about, but it also depends on the school. So, for example, University of Massachusetts at Boston has a lot of Albanians, but it's mostly a commuter school, so it's harder for them to connect with each other and form a club because they're not all living in the same place and can do things together. The other thing that's changed with Albanian youth in the universities is, let's say 20 years ago, most of them, not most, but a lot, were born and raised in Albania and Kosovo. And they came here somehow when they were 16 or 18. And
as students.
Whereas now it's mostly people that grew up in New York, Philadelphia, Boston.
And that's what I like about Original, because it's like they go to Original, they see this, the country that maybe they've never been to before, or just looking at it in a different perspective. And just as the testimonials from the individuals that went to the previous
Right.
summer,
Mm-hmm.
they all just fell in. It's hard not to fall in love
Yeah.
with your country of where your family was from and
Right. No, and I
your
know
origins.
Gurmeen puts a lot of time into selecting the right profile of people because they don't just look at applications. They do Zoom interviews with each potential participant. So, you get a feel for, will this person fit with a bunch of strangers for 2 weeks or not? Are they fun? Are they smart? Are they this? Are they that? And there's a certain...
Do those alumni, are they still involved after they leave the program?
Some, yeah. I mean, again, we're at the beginning. It's only 2 years that we've been actually doing the
that's
trips.
That's interesting to see if they still keep in contact.
Oh, they at a social level for sure they keep in contact. But just for this fundraiser we did last night, we had 5 alumni participate and make speeches.
Very nice.
And we've had, I'd say, 5 meetings, Zoom meetings over the last few months, talking about the concept of having like an alumni network. Like if you think of how American universities work, one thing is alumni have clubs, they donate a lot of money, they have events, there's that whole bonding experience that you get from it. And the idea is to do the same with
That's actually a great
original.
idea, definitely to form a network.
Yeah.
And think about it, they're all 18 to 24. Eventually, they're going to, a couple of years.
They'll be 40 like you and making tons of money and donating.
There you go. I guess then it becomes sustainable.
There you go. You got the answer to your sustainability question.
Mark, it was a pleasure having you here, learning more about your background
Thank you very much.
The great work that you do in the community.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here.
Keep it up.
I'll try.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
It gets very tough sometimes, and it's with a lot of challenges, as you know.
Yeah.
But we're here to support as much as we can from our side.
I want to see an older crowd going
do a
into
senior trip.
A senior trip.
Yeah.
We'll be the chaperones.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm in the medical profession, so in case anyone needs medications,
there you go. We have a medical professional on board. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Shumpaminder, and Shumpaminder to your audience out there.
Thank you.
It's fun to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.